Hey everyone, welcome back to On Purpose, the #1 health podcast in the world. Thanks to each and every single one of you who come back every week to listen, to learn, and to grow. Now, I'm super excited for this week's episode. It's been one that I've been waiting for a long time. These guys are not only super talented, but really, really good friends. And I really believe in the work that they're putting out into the world and the work that they're doing. Now, when I first discovered them, I was absolutely blown away. And to see them grow and to see them have the impact that they're having and the impact that they're having on people's lives through the way they do it is just magnificent. So I'm talking about the one and only Yes Theory. They're one of the most inspiring creative entities of our generation. Driven by their motto, seek discomfort, this group of friends from Egypt, France, and Sweden travel the world conquering everyday fears with the help of their community. Always choosing love over fear, which I absolutely love. A few days after meeting in summer of 2015, they started a video series called Project 30, where they documented the process of doing 30 new things in 30 days. A few thousand subscribers later, they'd found their calling. Now, best known for their YouTube channel, Yes Theory is based in Venice Beach, California. They continue to produce unique, adventurous, and inspiring content, consistently putting in over 20 million views per month and more, from tackling insecurities like asking strangers for favors to bungee jumping out of a helicopter with Will Smith into the Grand Canyon. Yes Theory is on a mission to inspire, empower, and unify a community of people committed to reaching their full potential by seeking discomfort. Welcome to the show, Matt, Thomas, and Ammar in spirit.
Yeah.
Guys, it's good to have you here, man.
So good to be here, Jay. Thank you for having us.
You guys are so epic. Like literally, like the stuff you put out is just, I'm like, I wish I was part of the crew, Like that's how I feel. Like
you're welcome anytime.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
We should take Jay on something.
Do you have a big fear that you've been trying to conquer?
I would love to figure that out with you. Like that would be fun to figure out, like, what is my real fear? Because I feel like half the time, I don't think when you start breaking down a lot of fears, and I don't think this is true, but you can start thinking like, oh, I have no fears. And that's not true. I think we all have fears. I think I have fears that I don't even know about. So one day we need to do a brainstorm on what my fear is. And then we need to go and figure it out.
Totally. And the biggest thing is just finding the fears that you feel like limit you, right? And sometimes it's the image or perception that you have of yourself. And so, Matt recently tried to land a backflip, and it wasn't about the backflip. It was about how not being able to do it made him feel.
Yes.
And just realizing, I mean, you can probably explain this better than I can, but
yeah, well, the backflip didn't go so well.
Still working on it. I'd be scared of trying to backflip.
Yeah. So these are the scars from the backflip a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, but like Thomas said, the whole point is to achieve freedom ultimately, and a lot of people will dismiss fears that they have, thinking that it's either too dangerous or unnecessary. But in our opinion, whatever constructs that you've built for yourself and whatever fears that may seem small are the most important, because those small fears that you overcome allow you to overcome the bigger fears.
Yeah.
And that's the goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now that you've told me that they came from backflips, I don't think I can afford to do that.
Yeah, it's tough, but I think you're gonna end up learning.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
It's just a matter of time.
Mm-hmm.
I think he tried to do it in 3 days, and the people who he was doing it with these professional parkour artists who were like, it took me 2 months to do this, and so he put a very slim timeline on it, and he also had a genuine fear of it. So I think with time, you'll achieve it.
Parkour is something I've always wanted to be good at, man. It
looks
so fun
cool.
watching it. Yeah, it looks cool. But, but do you always, when you take on a challenge, do you do it until you can do it? Or is it just the trying that's important? Like you said, he's going to get there. Yeah. But is it about getting there and getting the result? Or is it just about, hey, I tried, I got some bruises on my face and I gave it a go? Which one's important?
A line I love is, the beauty is in the attempt. And John Wooden, the coach for the UCLA basketball team, I think it was UCLA, defined success as just doing your best, leaving it all on the court. And for us, that's how we see it as well. There have been many episodes where we've completely failed, and we had given it our all, and it felt like we had won. And for us, that was the key, and that's kind of how we approach everything. We've gone after things that seemed impossible and went into it, knowing that it likely wouldn't happen, but it was worth a shot. And then sometimes it actually happens.
Yeah.
And that's the ultimate glory.
Totally. And I think you learn the most in the process, and the outcome is obviously always serves in that as well. I think, had we challenged Will Smith to bungee jump out of a helicopter and not gotten a response, I don't think we would have been like, oh, that wasn't worth it. It was still worth the shot, but the fact that it worked made us believe in the impossible. At that point, it was like, okay, now we can literally do anything. And so I think there's value in both, but not succeeding is not always the most important.
Yeah.
Or succeeding is not always the most important outcome.
Yeah. I love what you said there, though. How fun is it when something happens in your life which you never ever imagined would be possible?
Yeah.
And then as soon as it's now possible, now you start actually believing in the impossible, right?
Exactly.
Like, so for you guys, was that moment the Will Smith bungee jump for you guys? Or was it before that when you started seeing all the audience come through? Like, what was that moment where you were just like, whoa, like we just did something that we never imagined was possible? Was it like that? And then you started to feel like, oh, now we need to think bigger and bigger and bigger.
Mm-hmm. I feel like the very first moment we had a video where we signed Chelsea players to our soccer team.
This was day 19 of knowing each other.
So this was exactly, beginning of Project 30. And we had this idea. We found out that the Chelsea FC soccer team were staying in this hotel, and we were like, would be hilarious to like rip up a fake contract and then ask them, do you want to join our team? Because we had like a little soccer team, and we were like, it'd be amazing if they would just sign this. And then we went after it and snuck into the hotel and got them to sign, and then put it up, and it went on like Lad Bible and all these kind of like soccer pages, football pages. And
dude, I know what Lad Bible is.
Yeah. Okay, good. And it just like blew our minds. Like the video got like 100,000 views, but we thought we were like the biggest.
Well, at the time we were getting 500 views a video, and it was mostly from friends and family. Yeah. And we were living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Montreal, completely broke, making these videos every day. And so when we uploaded that video the night, and then we went to bed, and every morning I would wake up and just check the views, because I like views.
I like views.
I like views a lot. And
I'm gonna make a meme out of that.
Yeah. I went to the video, and it had 1,000 views, and we never had 1,000 views ever. So immediately I'm like, this is crazy. And I click refresh, and it went to 3,000 views. And all of a sudden I'm in my boxers, and I get up and I shake the boys awake, and I'm like, boys, it's going viral. It just went crazy. Yeah. And it was just such a wild experience seeing this thing just gain life without you even touching it at that point, Yeah. Like virality was we had never experienced it. So to see your creation being experienced by so many people was such a fulfilling experience. And then it gave us so much motivation, and it truly made us believe that like we could really bring our content to the world.
Do you remember the players that you signed?
John Terry and Nemanja
Mati.
Yeah, I know. I'm a huge soccer fan. So
are you at Chelsea?
I'm a Manchester United fan, but I know exactly. Oh, I need to watch that video. I don't think I've seen it.
It's pretty funny. It's like,
I need to watch that one.
It was one of the first ones we made, and it kind of made us. It was the first time a video worked beyond our family and friends. And there's just something you learn when that happens. I'm sure you experienced it too. The first time a video just stands out, you're like, whoa, wait, there's people I've never heard of before commenting on this. It's such a weird experience to have. And I think that really, there's been like moments like that throughout time in the past 5 years we've been doing this that just expanded like what we thought was possible, right? Like that was like the very first one. The very first one was just starting and making the first video and clicking upload, and then seeing that. It's like, oh wow, we have a video. It's up on the internet. Wow. And then second, and then third, and then 17th day we do this, and that happens. And then I think just
was it 17th or 19th?
19th, maybe, probably 19th. but basically, like it's the powerful thing with that experience is you just challenge what you expect from yourself, and then you can start pushing that and becoming a better filmmaker and becoming more creative. It's been an amazing journey just learning. And you learn as much from the failures as the successes, but there's just something that happens when it does work that makes you just want to push yourself even more and get excited by the challenge of filmmaking and creation and understanding how the internet functions, and also creating a piece that people really connect with is exciting, because then you're like, oh, we really hit people with this one. Like people were excited to watch this.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. I remember when I felt that when you guys fooled the world, and I was seeing it everywhere. And then when I saw you guys did it, it was the Justin Bieber burrito thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, I couldn't believe it. I was so impressed because I think I already was in touch with you guys then.
Yeah.
I think we were already communicating.
Yeah, we were.
And then I remember seeing it and I was just like, oh, no way. Like, no way did they do that. So now you guys are genius. Like it's not easy. Anyone who's the way you guys do, the way you guys think about your ideas, the way you make videos, the way you build it up, the way I mean, it's genius, man. It's really strong.
Thank you.
I want to hear about both of your personal journeys of personal growth before Project 30 and Yes Theory. Like, I want to know, what was it in your own life that brought you to make this content? Because let's this could have very easily just been fun content, prank content. It could just be like that, but it's not. It's about seeking discomfort. There's a message. Like, you all believe that there's a rule behind your work, that it has to be centered around meaning and it has to have impact, right? It's not just, oh, let's just make some fun videos that get views. So tell me about your lives independently before Project 30 that already had that kind of mindset.
Yeah.
Either of you.
Yeah, well, I was never really into entrepreneurship or filmmaking or any of that as a kid. I was more just into adventure with friends. And the one memory that I remember was every summer I would go to France, where I'm half French, half American. So in the summer I would go to France and my friends would stay back in the States. And while I was in France, I would come up with a list of like 20 fun ideas that my friends and I could do when we get back, whether it was like going bungee jumping or going on this road trip 3 hours away. And I would write the list and I would remember sending it to my friends and them kind of not wanting to do it and just kind of wanting to hang out in our town. And I remember how frustrating that felt to want to go to all these places and do all these things and not have people really align with it. And so I ended up in high school and my first year of college. And I love these people, but it was mostly people who wanted to kind of stay in one place and party a lot and have a good time. And I kind of got stuck in that environment, the party, like the constantly partying. And then when I was 19, after my first year in college, I went on a trip with my family to Russia. And while we were in Russia, I read Richard Branson's autobiography, Losing My Virginity. And I remember reading it, and when he was 17, Richard Branson started his first ever company. It was a student magazine. And he built it up over 3 years to be the biggest magazine for teenagers in all of the UK. And the way he described it, working with his friends in the basement, grinding every day on phone calls, like trying to convince advertisers to pay money, and how eventually after a year, he got his first advertiser, and then it grew and grew and grew. And the excitement of that was so much more thrilling than what I was doing. And I became obsessed. Like, I needed to start a company somehow. And so when I got home after the summer, when I got back to college, I kind of just quit partying. I just didn't want to go out anymore. And I just bought every entrepreneurial book that I could and just dissected everything that these guys and women were doing. And over the next 3 years in college, I tried to start several businesses with different partners. And the first few didn't really work out. But then the last one that I did was a clothing company where we would partner up with street artists from around the world and we would give back to the homeless in their cities. And that project ended up being my biggest one at the time, and it got the attention of my university. We had a lot of students who were ambassadors. And Thomas was a student at the university, and his class did a marketing consulting thing on my company. And it was him and 3 other students who consulted for me for a semester. And I met him the first day that I met him. They had this like pitch ready for my clothing company. But the one thing that actually stuck out was a story that he told me about sneaking into a big concert like that he loved, of this artist that he loved. And his storytelling instantly captured me. And he had a small YouTube channel at the time. And I instantly went after the meeting to check out the YouTube channel. And I was just so enthralled because he was actually the first person that I'd met that had that same obsession with creating something and sacrificing everything else for it. I'd never met anyone that was willing to grind 24/7 to make something happen. And so we connected pretty much instantly. And after he told me all of his story, it was just like, yeah, let's do something together. And I'll let you explain your story.
That's amazing, man. Thanks for sharing that. I hope I hope everyone who's listening and watching can just hear themselves in that experience, because I think everything you just said, there's so much of it that we can all relate to, whether you're just lost in the partying world, or whether you feel you're wasting time, or whether you feel like maybe your current friends don't want the adventure life that you want, or, all of those thoughts, but showing that when you're seeking it, you find it, you find and connect with the people. So yeah, let's hear yours.
Totally. No, that's super interesting. I didn't even know about that story of your,
Really?
of your friends. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
way to whip it out.
Podcast, you find out.
Yeah, that's really great. For me, it was kind of interesting. I grew up in a family where my dad and all my uncles were all entrepreneurs. So my grandfather had moved from Sweden to France for a job at Tetra Pak, and when he was 50, he got fired. And my dad and all his older brothers basically saw their dad go from being like this super like popular, successful guy to being somebody who just didn't have a job anymore for several years. And it just planted this seed in all of them that they never wanted to work for somebody else.
Wow.
And so I grew up in a very like, that was like the narrative, in my family, just like work for yourself, like create something on your own. And I never knew really what I wanted to do. Like growing up as a teenager in France, I was like, okay, well, figure that out eventually, I guess. And I kind of ended up pursuing the path of traditional entrepreneurship. Going into tech was like the big thing in 2011, 2012, when I was kind of starting college. And so did that for a while. And in one of my entrepreneurship classes, one of my teacher started his class with, is it worth it to go to the Louvre in Paris, the museum?
Yeah.
And I was so confused. I'm like, I thought we were an entrepreneurship class. Why are we talking about this museum? And his eventual point was that when you go to a museum far away and you put yourself in an environment that's so different from anything you've experienced before, you kind of transcend your previous perception of reality to some extent, right? Like it's not just about going to see the Mona Lisa, it's about the smell, it's about the people that you run into, it's about the restaurant or the cafe you were at right before. It's about taking a plane and stepping off and being somewhere completely different. All of these emotions and experiences kind of expand your brain and you make new connections, right? And maybe, you think you thought you were going to see the Mona Lisa, but it's actually the thing right behind it that you were blown away by. And that's the beauty of doing something where you get out of your comfort zone. And it can actually be an amazing tool for creativity, for fulfillment, for adventure. It just felt like an unlimited amounts of positive things can happen with that. And I was kind of sitting in that class and it just really struck with me. I feel like everybody walked out of that class and just moved on. And I was like, I have to talk to the teacher more. This just blew my mind. Like I had never really realized that you can consciously seek to get out of your comfort zone to gain value. And so it just kind of like planted a seed in my mind. And like 8 months later, I was making these videos, and initially it was like comedy skits, which were like fine and fun to make about like my experience in college. But I just wanted more purpose. And I wanted something that could also give me purpose in the journey. Not just like, okay, these skits are great, but I want something where like more grounded in reality. And so that was around the time I met Matt, and he showed me this show on MTV called The Buried Life, which was about these 4 guys crossing off 100 things they've off their bucket list and helping somebody else do the same. And immediately it just connected. Like we were blown away. And I was just felt so inspired by this concept. And they had actually stopped making episodes anymore. And it just felt like such a shame. I was like, this is the best show I've ever seen in my life. And so around that time kind of ended up simmering. Matt and I were brainstorming a lot of ideas on like, what could we do? And then the idea of doing 30 things that we had never done before in 30 days and making a video about it every single day came up. And then that was kind of like the birth of Yes Theory.
You originally wanted to be what, 100?
Yeah, I was like, I can do it every day for a year. And like, and I woke up in the middle of the night and I told my roommate, and he was like, you can't do a video every day for a year. Like that's ludicrous.
Yeah.
He was like, you should do something smaller, like a week or something. And a week just didn't feel like, what am I going to get out of a week? But a month felt like the perfect timeline for that.
Yeah.
And luckily we met Ammar in that exact period as well. He had snuck into my best friend's going away party.
Yeah.
And I just told him about this. I'm like, I don't know. This summer, I'm just going to do this thing. I'm like working on the side to make money right now and blah, blah, blah. And then a few days later, he met Matt and it was just like love at first sight, basically.
I love it, man. That's amazing. Yeah, it's good to hear those stories because I think Yeah, I just love the fact that you guys found each other, because that seems like such a big thing, that you all share this fascination with trying out new things, new experiences. And you have this message, which is, if you want something, ask for it, right?
Yeah.
Like if you don't ask for something you don't know, like tell me about how you became so convinced about that message, or where that originated from. Because I think we're living in a world where people forget trying things that you guys try. We're just scared of asking for things on an everyday basis.
Yeah.
Even if it's simple things, right? Even if it's like really normal everyday things, we struggle. Tell us where that came from.
Great question. I'd actually love to know what you think. Why do you think people are afraid of asking?
I think people are afraid of asking because they think it shows their flaws, or it shows their weaknesses. Because if you ask someone for something, it makes it look like you're weak and you're in need, and you now have flaws that if they say no, then you now think they're going to think that you're not worth anything, or that you've lost value. We generally, I'm just thinking of examples, like people get scared to ask for what they deserve in a relationship, because they don't want to make the other person feel like they have the power to give or not give them something. Or people feel afraid to ask for, they're having an issue with their building or someone in their life, and they feel scared to ask for what they're worth, because they're scared again. I think we're scared of giving away power. We think somehow that when we're asking, we're giving the other person the power, because they're getting the power to say yes or no.
It's almost like we've given them the power already.
Yeah.
We've handed over our power to other people, and these people get to decide who we are and what we do. And maybe it comes from childhood, from parents just being very stern. I don't know. But it's almost like having a taste of, like, the first time you do it, it's so nerve-wracking, whether it's discomfort or asking for something that makes you feel uncomfortable. And then all of a sudden gradually it opens up this kind of freeing environment within yourself, where you're like, oh, that didn't turn out so bad. Like, I asked that person for help and they were so willing to help me. And then I asked that person, to share my post, and they did it right away. And then all of a sudden, not only do you ask for help when you need it, but you're so much more empathetic and you're so much more willing to help other people. And then it becomes this cycle of you helping others and others helping you. And that's how, growth in general happens.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just stuck alone, and you're helping nobody, and you're not being helped, and you just kind of stall.
Yeah. It also it attracts the people, it's a great filter too, right? Because like somebody who's going to help you is open-minded and empathetic and kind, most likely. But it also, like, if I was never sharing what I wanted to do, you and I would never have connected. And if you were never sharing what you wanted to do, we never would have found that middle ground. And same with Ammar. And I think that the beautiful thing is we weren't afraid to like ask each other for like help in different areas. It's kind of like, I think one of our friends, Ben Nemton, who actually is on the show Buried Life, says that you're drastically more likely to actually make something happen if you write it down. And you're even more likely to make it happen if you have like an accountability buddy. So somebody who holds you accountable or who can potentially help you, because now you're making it real, right? Like so many people in the back of their minds think like, oh, I'll run a marathon one day, maybe, but if you start to take the steps towards it and tell people you're going to do it, immediately now it's real. So it's very easy to get stalled and never have anything happen. Yeah. But I really like the way you mentioned it too, about in relationships, asking for what we want. It's so important.
Yeah. And I think we struggle to ask for stuff because we also haven't invested enough to ask, in the sense of like, even when you guys are doing a trick on the Chelsea football players, you've still invested in making a contract. Like you've got into that place. Whereas if you just walked in and walked up to them and said, hey, do you want to sign for my club? And there was no contract, you hadn't planned it out.
Right.
They probably wouldn't have agreed, or there would have been no video. It would have been just some silly prank video. But it's when you've created a scenario, and similarly in our lives, like if you've invested in a relationship with someone, or you've put some time and energy into it, you then feel that you're able to ask. And I think that's why we struggle to ask, because we've not really brought anything to the table. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So interesting.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I like looking at it for you guys, because you guys are doing this on a daily basis. Like the amount of times you've heard the word no, like you're called yes theory, but you've probably heard more no's than anyone in the world, I'm guessing, at this stage. Because of what was like the biggest no, like when you tried a new video idea or you tried a concept and it was just like, nope, like this, it's not going that way.
Probably Elon. Funny enough.
Yeah, we're actually trying to pull off like something we're calling Elon Week.
Okay.
We're going to try our best for an entire week to try and get Elon's attention, to ask him a question.
I love it.
And we've tried in the past, and he's a very, very difficult man to reach.
Yeah.
So that's probably been one of the biggest. It's not even a no; it's a non-answer.
Yeah.
If anyone can do it, you guys can do it.
I think we're gonna pull it off. I think we're gonna pull it off.
I think you will pull it off. Yeah, I could see it. Elon Week sounds cool. I want to help out. Yeah, that's great. That's cool.
But there's actually one that I was thinking that was so funny, because we walked out and we just didn't have the right energy. We had this idea of trying to convince a stranger to come shark diving with us. Do you remember that day when we went out? And it was just such a brutal day of like, we walked out and we were already a little tired and not in the best headspace. Because you gotta, like, and I'm sure you can relate to this, but like you will pull in the energy that you project. And so if you walk out and you're in a bad mood and you're kind of awkward when you're asking, the reactions you're gonna get back are gonna be terrible. And we were just, people were like roasting us for asking them, and he was just bringing us down and down and down. And we just eventually, just after 30 minutes of trying, which usually we try for like hours, after 30 minutes we just like, let's just drive home. Let's just not even keep going. Like there's no way we're convincing somebody today. And sometimes you just have to accept that that's what it is, right? Like not every single time will work. But we learned something that day, right? That we carried over, and the next time we were better. But
and again, it's the filter. We're so thankful for the no's. Because if that person would said a maybe and it was a yes, it just wouldn't have worked. We want the enthusiastic hell yes.
Yeah.
No questions asked. Like the people that have said yes to us in the past, whether it was going on a first date across the world or going, there's so many.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah. They've never gone into detail of what the thing includes, whether it's safe, etc. They're like, that sounds amazing. I'm down. And these people have ended up being our friends over the last 5 years. Like they're people we stay in touch with for that reason. It's that spirit that we're looking for in people.
Absolutely.
Almost like this like childlike excitement and enthusiasm, that's what we live for.
Yeah. And what's interesting is we try and make sure they don't know like that we have a YouTube channel and all these things, because we want the yes to be as pure as possible from a place of genuine spontaneity and excitement for adventure. And so when we get that, like we've just been so lucky, like you're saying, to meet some incredible people that were open to 2 strangers or 3 strangers on the street walking around asking them for something ludicrous. And then in the end realizing what we love is keeping, because then it all just becomes more and more positive surprises, right? Like, what, we're actually flying to this place, and what, like, it's an amazing thing to just watch it unfold in their eyes and reward them for the trust that they had in that moment.
Yeah, that's awesome. One of the things I've been reflecting on, what you guys are both echoing, is just how everyone who's winning more is actually also losing more. So it's like anytime you're getting a yes, you've already heard like 39 no's. Right? It's like every time one of those people after hours says yes, that means you've spent hours hearing no's. And whatever we're doing in any of our spaces, whether it's trying to get Elon or whether it's trying to make a new video or coming up with a new concept or launching a new podcast like you guys are doing soon, like whatever it is out of all of those things, it's like you've heard no's the whole way. And I think getting used to hearing no is actually such an important skill. And it sounds like you guys have really mastered it, because I can't imagine how hard it is. It's so easy for you guys to go on the streets and be like, we're yes theory, like, to try and, but I love the fact that you're not actually getting people to say yes because you have a YouTube channel. They're saying yes because you're getting that pure yes, as you said. I mean, that's awesome. I've loved that. That's great to hear that, because I think that's hard for people to understand. What's been the, what have you personally learned from breaking through your fears? Like, which one for you was like, I really got over something, right? Like I really broke through something deep, personal, and intimate for me when we did this thing. That was the one where I realized I learned a lot from it. So what was the fear, or what was the challenge, or what was the discomfort, and what was the lesson you learned from breaking through that individually? And it can't be together if it's
No, yours. Mine.
Yeah.
You can go ahead.
For me, probably the most difficult experience that I've had doing this the past 5 years was we went out with Wim Hof Iceman in Poland, and we ended up creating a documentary out of it because the experience was not at all what we were expecting. Like, we thought we were coming out to do the Wim Hof method and learn the basics. And as soon as we got there, he saw us all wearing our Seek Discomfort sweaters. And the first day we're like, let's go cliff jumping in the water. And he's like, okay. And, he's kind of seeing that we're comfortable being in uncomfortable situations. And so he's like, okay, the Wim Hof method is not going to work. Like, this is going to be too easy for you guys. We got to up the stakes. And we're like, what does that mean? And so the next day we wake up and he's just pacing back and forth in the breakfast room. And we're like, what is he? What's going on? And he's like, I don't know if I'm allowed to curse, but he just goes, F the training. We're like, what? We're not going to do any of the training. We're going 10 minutes in ice water. Prepare. You have 30 minutes. Don't eat any breakfast. We're going in 30 minutes. Set your mind. And we're just like, what are you talking about?
It's like negative 10 degrees outside.
Yeah, it's already, there's a snowstorm outside. Typically, if you spend more than 3 minutes in like below freezing ice water, which we were about to do, you can hit hypothermia if you're not careful. Like, there's a lot of risks. Like,
there's
involved.
No medical staff, nothing.
Yeah, we're just like, wait, what? Who has done 10 minutes? And this isn't just like a regular ice bath. This is like a moving body of water. So it actually makes it much more challenging, because when you're in an ice bath, there's like after a few minutes, there's like a very thin coat of warm water that builds around your body. But here it's impossible. Like, you're freezing the entire time. And I put my toes in the water and I was immediately like, I need to get out. Like, within 10 seconds, I thought it was over for me. But we walked in all together, ended up doing this, like saying yes to like, okay, let's do the 10 minutes. Let's try it. In my mind, I was like, I'm going to last 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And I'd never been in so much pain, physical pain, in my whole life. And I definitely do not recommend for anyone to try this at home. But I think having these guys around, and then having Wim there, and he saw that I was the one struggling the most, like pushing me and encouraging me. And then in the end, ending up breaking the 10-minute mark and then running back up to the sauna. And it took me a whole hour to like get back to normal temperature.
Yeah.
Was one of the, like, I have a very like rational clock that ticks, in my brain that goes, okay, it's enough. Like, I got injured pretty hard when I was 18. I developed like these chronic injuries from sports. And so I've been always super careful with not pushing myself physically too much. Like, if I go on a run and I start to feel my ankle weird, I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm walking back now. And this was like, within a minute, I thought it was over. And, so I didn't only push what I thought my physical ability was, but also my own perception of when I'm supposed to stop. And after like calming down from that, just being so proud of myself for having achieved something that I genuinely believed was impossible 30 minutes earlier. I didn't think going to Poland that I would pass 2 minutes in the ice water. I thought we would train our way up to 2 minutes. So to have done 10, only using basically like the small skills that I have in meditation, just trying to like control my pain. And I would love to ask you about this too, but it's just, there was something in there where I just transcended, and I had to be so focused on just, because as soon as you start shivering, it's over. So that was the main thing he was telling us. You just the only thing you can use is the power of your mind. And I was like, what is he talking about? Like, the power of my mind? I'm freezing. There's nothing to do with my mind. But what I realized is so much of my own limitation that I'd set was in my mind. It wasn't the physical pain. It was how I was coping with it, and how far I was allowing myself to go. And then the next day we climbed a mountain in a snowstorm in shorts. That's it. Shorts and shoes. Got to the top, and that also just became one of the most surreal moments. So like back to back, I just did two things that I never thought I could do. And after a few days of reflection, I just realized that now I'm like, I approach certain challenges with a completely new perspective. Like, I don't always, previously I'd have like this, okay, this is how far I can go. In my mind, I had an idea of when my limit was going to arrive. And now I'm always kind of, second guessing it, not to push myself and get injured, but I'm always making sure that I haven't set, a limit to myself that can actually just hold me back from how far I can actually go.
Yeah.
So it was a very interesting experience.
That's awesome, man.
But in the end, just ended up gaining a new level of self-respect for myself. I'm like, damn, what else can I do?
Yeah.
Which was amazing.
Thank you for sharing that, man. That's what I love about this story, because I think for a lot of people who are listening and watching, it's like when we see these incredible feats being performed, we often think of people who like train for them, or people who are like athletes and like naturally athletic, and they have like, and it's just like when you just look at it as normal people, like we're all of us sitting here, we're just normal people who are trying to do extraordinary things with our body or our minds and giving it a go. And when you're talking about it, I can hear it. And I really appreciate your honesty and vulnerability of just like, basically I thought I was going to last 30 seconds. And I think that's most of us in so many places. But when I hear you say it, hopefully everyone who's listening and watching is going to be like, oh yeah, if Thomas can do it, like I can do it too, It's like, and I'm not saying, again, don't try it at home, but the point being that you start to be like, oh, well, if he didn't train and he's not, it's not like you're an athlete. It's not like you come from an athletic background. It's just, this is what you could achieve by saying yes. And again, very importantly, being around a good supportive group of people, being with an expert in what he does, and being in that space. Yeah, I love that, man. That's a good story.
For that same reason that we're so obsessed with community.
Yeah.
Because had you been in that water by yourself?
No, it's zero, literally 0% chance.
Yeah, I think for all of us.
Yeah.
That's what
everybody thrives with the supportive community.
I love it, man. What's yours?
Mine was last year. I did my first Ironman, full Ironman triathlon. And
insane.
It just like Thomas said, there was just this impossibility to it, and I'd heard about it when I was 21 from a friend of my parents, who was this 45-year-old dude and so athletic, and he told me what it entailed. I don't know if you know what an Ironman is, but it's a 2.5 kilometer swim, 180 kilometer bike ride, and then a full marathon. So on average, it takes
then a full marathon.
Yeah, it's insane.
And so when he explained it, that immediately just kind of you cast it aside. There's just no chance. But then as we started to do Yes Theory and started to meet all these incredible people, we started to meet more triathletes and people who had completed Ironman, like Rich Roll, who became a big inspiration. Did you?
I interviewed him last week.
Oh, no way.
I was with him yesterday. I was on his podcast yesterday.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah,
he's a legend.
Do you guys know him?
Yeah, he's a good
love that guy.
Yeah.
And so seeing these people, like you're saying, normal people who achieved extraordinary things, you start thinking like maybe there's something here, but you don't immediately go for the full thing, usually not straight into the water for 10 minutes. So I started to do a smaller triathlon, then a half Ironman. And then actually on the day of the jump with Will Smith last year, or was it 2 years ago? 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I met his personal trainer, Aaron, and I'd been thinking about doing an Ironman. And I walked up to him, and I hadn't talked to him ever before. I was like, hey man, I heard you're Will's personal trainer. He's like, yes, I am. And I was like, well, I'm doing an Ironman in May. You should do it with me. And he kind of just looked at me like I was crazy. And I was like, all right, cool. I'll see you later. And then I ran into him an hour later, and he'd thought about it. And he was at a point in his life where he needed something to break constructs and just get out of his shell. And he accepted. He was like, yeah, let's do it. And so within a month, I was training with Will Smith's personal trainer nearly every day, and he was giving me this curriculum of what this would actually entail. And when I'd thought about doing the Ironman, my goal was I just want to finish. 17 hours is the max. If I do it in 17 hours, I'll be so stoked. I'll be the happiest man alive. And then when I started to talk to Aaron, Aaron said, when you do something in your life as big as this, you should never, ever, ever half-ass it. It should be full commitment, because it's going to reflect in everything else you do after. And I never thought about it like that. I always just thought you needed to finish the thing. That didn't necessarily require full effort. But he explained that the reward is in the practice. It's not in the result. And so for 8 months, this man just grinded me down. Like you can, to pebbles. I was just every day woke up at 5 a.m. feeling broken and having to go for a 2-hour run and then a 3-hour bike ride, So by the end of the 8 months, and this required me to take time off videos and traveling, which sometimes is very frustrating for these guys.
Yeah.
But I told them it was worth it. I was like, guys, it's going to be worth it. And then on the day of the race, Aaron and I had decided that our goal was to do it in under 12 hours, which is below, it's the top quarter of the people that finished the race.
Whoa.
Which, having never done a full one, I was just like, this is ridiculous. And with no sleep, because you don't sleep the night before, you're so anxious, and you have to wake up at 3:30 a.m. to get to the starting line.
How many people do it?
2,000 did it in that race. I think 40 to 50,000 do it a year.
Okay.
And what's amazing is it's people of all ages, and like there's 21-year-olds and there's 70-year-olds that go for it, and
Wow.
each have their own respective goals. But so when I did it, and what ended up happening was I did the swim, then I did the bike, and then on mile 10 of the race, which was about 10 hours in, my body just completely shut down, and I started to cry and started to walk. And after 8 months of training, I was so mad at my body. I was like, how could you do this to me? And then as I was walking, and other people around you are collapsing as well, so you're like, I guess I can just give up here. What is it, 16 more miles to go? There's just no freaking chance. And then I actually thought about Ammar, who had done a marathon without training the year before. And he told me that halfway through the race, the same thing happened. And that he decided that every mile from that point on, he would dedicate to somebody that he loved, and he would imagine them running by his side.
Wow.
And so remembering that, and remembering everything Aaron had taught me, I slowly started to get back up and slowly started to run. And every single mile was, first I imagined my brother, then I imagined Thomas, I imagined my parents, I imagined my friend Steve, I imagined all these people who especially supported me the last 8 months. And like, I'm crying and I'm running and I'm just full of sweat, and people are just dying next to me, like giving up. And I just have these people in my mind, and I refuse to think of anything else. And what's wild is if you look at the time, I actually speed up the second half of the race faster than I was the first half. So these guys were tracking me, and when I was hitting that mile, they were like, oh God, he's stopping. And then they were like, oh, wait, what's, he's picking it back up. And it was because of that community. And so on the last mile, when by that point, I'm just completely ruined, these guys came for the last mile and ran it with me by my side. And by the end, there's just nothing left. And the video at the end is just me collapsing in Ammar's arms, and then these guys' arms. And it was just and I finished in 11 hours and 57 minutes. So 3 minutes below the 12-hour mark that I'd aimed for. And it was the first time in my life that I felt like a winner. For so long, forever, I was just riddled with self-doubt. It was like, I'm not a winner, and I have to, even through Yes Theory, it was like, like it was motivated by self-doubt to prove to myself. But it was me. Like I had to prove this was just me. And yes, with the support of the community, but it's all in my mind. And to be able to hit your goal under 12 hours and see it visually, and physically has, completely profoundly changed my life. After we went to dinner, I went to dinner with Aaron, and I hadn't really thought about the whole thing. I was just happy it was over. And he walks up to me, and by this point, he's like my best friend and my partner, he's just my guy. And he just pats me on the shoulder, and he's like, hey buddy, just so you know, those 3 minutes are going to change the rest of your life. And I just, stood in silence. I was like, wow. And it's been 8 months since that day, and so many parts of my life have changed because of it. So many things I thought were impossible have changed, whether it was with relationships or goals that I had, or even something like approaching a backflip that I never, there's just small things and big things, because I finally was able to prove to myself that I could win. It just changes your identity to go through that discomfort and to come out successful. It's the most blissful, beautiful, freeing experience that a human can possibly have. So to chase that discomfort that's why we preach it, because that's what creates freedom, And even for somebody like you, I'm sure writing a book has been a thing that you've wanted to do forever, for example, and so many other things. But to actually have it in your hands, be like, I made this thing, and it's probably going to be number one New York Times bestseller, maybe. Like you did this, and these are physical manifestations of what we're capable of. And the reason something like a Yes Theory or Seek Discomfort never gets old is because the challenge just continues. What else can I do is the question. And, there's opportunity everywhere. It's endless. And that's what makes life so goddamn exciting. It's like a playground for all your dreams, one after the other, if you tackle them. Yeah. It's the most beautiful thing. And that's like our fuel, Yeah.
That's a great story, man. That's beautiful hearing it from your mouth in that way. It's like I was there with you, when I was hearing you say that, I really felt like I was there with you. And I love that the fears are different. What you find easy or hard is different. Like, as humanity, like we all find certain things really easy and simple and natural and effortless. And there are certain things that we find hard, and it's different for different people.
Yeah.
And we don't have the same challenges, and we don't feel the same discomfort. Like for some people, 100%. Sitting in cold is easy. And for some people, sitting in heat is hard. And for some people, whatever it is, it's different. And I think it's wonderful that you all like let yourselves, you gave him 8 months off from making videos to go and test this. And you had a different test. And this may be because when I hear you guys talk about this, there's camaraderie, there's friendship, there's brotherhood, like there's respect. Like when I hear you all sharing the stories today, and when I watch your content, it's not like a dare, right? There's a difference, and it's subtle, but it's something that I really want to bring up, is that I don't feel like you guys are daring each other. It's like you're like cheering each other on. You're like wanting the person to win.
Yeah.
Tell me about the difference between a real discomfort challenge versus peer pressure. Because I feel like there's a difference, and I feel like you've built a community around really challenging yourselves and rooting for your friends and brothers to win and sisters to win, and you're really rooting for each other. Whereas I feel that in the same way, we often experience dare culture or like peer pressure culture, or like force culture. And I know for me that force culture has always made me back away from challenges.
Totally.
Whereas the brotherhood has always made me want to challenge myself more. So tell me about how you've been able to understand the difference, and how you've been able to focus so strongly on the positive one.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah, that is a great question.
I think the intention behind it is the most important thing. Like, why are you, challenging this person to do it? Because if it comes from a place of like, okay, I'm going to humiliate this person, or I'm going to, put them in a position that's going to make them feel really bad about themselves, like that's terrible. You know what I mean? Like, or if you're doing it only because you think this might get views, or, if you're doing going down a cart and, in a staircase just because you think it's whatever, it's, that never sits well. Whereas if you're like, okay, I'm going to give my friend 5 minutes to prepare for a stand-up set and sign him up without him knowing, that's a whole different thing, because it's coming from a place of, yes, there's an element of cheekiness, but it's also like a belief that doing this is something that has an element of growth. Like being up and bombing and then coming back down is an experience that is in the moment painful and not great, but in the end, you've now experienced what it is to not do great. And then from there, like literally anything else on stage is not going to feel as bad as whatever that was. There is always something to learn there. And with everything we do, if we ever put each other in uncomfortable or difficult situations, it always comes from a place of love. It comes from a place of, I think, this person is actually going to benefit from this experience. There's, would you agree with that? It's the intention.
So was it loving when you sent me to Miami to take the world's longest bus ride?
Yeah.
Was that love?
So I booked a ticket for him and his brother.
Yeah.
And then 2 of our British friends to take the longest bus ride in America.
Yeah.
And,
on a Greyhound.
On a Greyhound.
Yeah, that wasn't love.
It didn't feel like love.
Yeah. But it turned out to be an amazing bonding experience for you and those 3 guys. And then you also got to see the country that you're from in a completely new lens, right? I remember your brother came back and he was like, that was actually really cool. Which is, there's always an unexpected thing that happens, a magic that kind of comes to play when you put yourself in that kind of situation. And we sent Ammar to Czechoslovakia with blindfolds on when we were in Europe, and he had to figure out his way back with $0.
He didn't know what country he was in.
He didn't know what country he was in.
Slovakia, I think it was.
How did he do
Slovakia.
that?
He so first thing, he walked up to people and asked like, "What country am I in?" And people were so confused. They were like, "What? What do you mean? What country are you in? How did you get here?"
And he's got a blindfold on.
No, so he was able to
Oh,
take
he's
it
allowed
off.
to take it off. Okay.
Yeah.
He took it off. That we took him there blindfolded, so he didn't know where he was.
Sure.
And then eventually just ended up meeting a few younger people that thought what he just was doing was hilarious. And then they actually ended up hanging out with them on their farm and got like a haircut. And then eventually got like a couple of euros to take a bus to the border and then another bus. And he kind of just like figured his way back.
Who paid for his flight?
No, so we were in a neighboring country.
Okay.
So yeah, he had to, there was a few 3 or 4 connecting buses that he could take, but he also didn't know how that would work. So first he had to because he didn't have his phone either. He didn't have internet. So, but in the end, like he ended up meeting these locals in Slovakia. Like he never would have experienced that otherwise in his life. And there's just, when you're put in those situations, he also knows that we're coming from a place of love, right? We're not trying to humiliate him or make him look bad. We're trying to put him in a situation where he just gets an extremely authentic travel experience and like a survival challenge to be like, now I know that if I'm in a country where I don't speak the language, I don't even know where I am, I can get back to where I came from, which is also a very humbling experience to have. So that's always what it is. Yeah.
There's a lot of love, I can tell.
Yeah, because we don't ever want any of us to be in serious harm, right? Like when we were in that ice water, or when Matt is running the Ironman, like we're in 100% support of each other, and we never want to. It's never like, push yourself in a way that could harm you. Like we're always very cautious of making sure we balance that line of, okay, when is too far? And it's almost become an instinctual thing now where we just know and we can feel, okay, just let's just stop. Let's just not do it. And it is a fine line to know where the limit is. But I think now we're good friends and we've spent enough time with each other and also with other people in moments of discomfort and of fear to know when it's time to okay, it's probably gone enough.
No, it's nice to hear it. And I think it's an important message because I think it's, I think from an immature standpoint, everyone can get very carried away with their culture. But the way I wanted to hear you guys talk about it because it's never come across that way. And that's why there are times when I would shy away from a challenge when I feel it's coming from a competitive comparison place, as opposed to when I feel it's coming from a compassionate, loving, let's kind of do this space, and it's really interesting to just see how things have changed. You guys remind me of so many things. When you talk about this bus journey, I did this. I talk about it in my book, Think Like a Monk. I talk about, it was between 48, I can't even remember how long it was, but it was definitely between 48 to 72 hour train journey in India. Wow. So it's from like Mumbai to South India. So it's a long journey all the way across basically a lot of India. And because we were monks, we traveled like third class, like meaning like you're traveling on the cheapest economy level ticket on a train. And the trains in India, like there are people who pay for tickets and then there are people who just jump on and ride as long as they can. So you've got like us sitting on seats, but you're now sitting next to 3 other people who have not paid for that seat. And there are all these people on the floors and like it's crowded, like it's packed.
Wow.
Like there's no space and you're trying to breathe. And then you go to the toilet, which is literally just like, I mean, you can imagine it already. So I remember like not eating for 2 days because I just didn't want to use the restroom. Like that was the reason. Like there's no other reason. It's just like crap. But it's like having done that and having pushed it. And it's funny because we were with one of the senior monks and I was telling him, I was like, I'm not sure I can meditate here either. Like maybe I'll wait till, we get off at the other side and I'll catch up on my meditation. And he goes, and I remember him saying to me, he goes, do you think the time of death is going to be peaceful? And I was like, no. And he goes, well, then you should meditate right now if you want to meditate at the time of death. And I was like, what? And he was just like, you can't wait for peace to meditate. Like you should, if you can meditate in this, then you'll be able to meditate anywhere.
Wow.
And it was just, it was like a really forceful lesson of like, oh yeah, that's what meditation's for, right? Like not waiting for peace, but find peace within chaos. And so, yeah, anyway, we'll have to do a separate one where I get to share some
did you have what was the most challenging experience you had when you were a monk? Was there a moment where you like really pushed past your limit, but you didn't think you were going to be able to do it?
Yeah, loads. I mean, there's stuff like, when you're meditating for 8 hours at a time, that's really hard because, and it's almost more, it starts off physically hard because it's sitting in the same place, right? For 8 hours. It's dealing with the fact that there might be a mosquito biting you. It might be really hot outside, right? The sun in India is really hot. The times are changing around you. You've got ants everywhere. You've got all these things going on. So it starts off being like a physical pain. And then it's almost like when you realize, like you said, with the cold, in the same way, you can't, as soon as you start shivering or as soon as I start itching and scratching myself, like meditation's over. And now you're just lost in the physical. But as soon as you go inward, you're now dealing with all the noise up here.
Yeah.
So now it's all like the self-doubt. Now it's like the constant conversation, the noise of opinions, the noise of all the ego coming up, humiliation, all the questioning. So you're now lost in this mental space.
Yeah.
And like all the kind of like, every piece of self-doubt, every question you've ever been asked, all the mistakes you've made, everything just comes to the fore. And now you're dealing with that.
Yeah.
And then you have to go beyond that to finally reach a space of quiet. So it's much more of a subtle internal battle as opposed to an external pain, which I think all of it is. Like even hearing you say that, like, it's funny, our teachers used to say that whenever you get stuck in meditation, you should meditate and pray for those who are in need. So you would think of someone who needs that extra hour of your meditation and you would dedicate that extra hour or half an hour of your meditation to that person because that compassion would pull you through. Even if you weren't doing it for yourself, when you felt you were doing it for someone else, you could break through. So hearing you say that was super powerful. Like, so for me, it was more like having to break through that noise and really being able to silence and quiet the mind. Fasting was really tough. Like, I don't know if you guys have tried any fasts, but when we would do like no food and no water for 3 days in a row.
No water either.
Yeah, no water either. Like that kind of stuff was really tough.
While having to meditate.
Yeah, and you can't sleep. Like you can sleep normal hours that you sleep, but you can't sleep during the day to avoid being awake. And so stuff like that was, that's when I started to fast, because I was like, you can't live without food. Like, that feeling, or water. When you push through that for the first 24 hours that you do it, you're like, oh wow, like, my body can actually live off of a lot less than I believe. So things like that, being in extreme heat and extreme cold, it was never the cold baths, but it was like whether we were at the foothills of the Himalayas, and we would bathe in the Ganga, or the Ganges as it's known. And up there it's freezing. Like, it's just, it's not nearly at the source of where it comes from. So yeah, those kind of experience, similar to yours, but not in the same, for us, it was spiritually motivated from the point of view of there was some spiritual purification. It was all about cleansing and purifying the mind and breaking the doubts that we have in the mind. So similar to the way you guys are saying it, but
do you ever, this is kind of a weird question, but do you ever miss that focus? Like, do you ever, because now you're doing so much, you have all these things happening, you live in Los Angeles, which is probably the noisiest city in the entire world for all these things happening. It's the polar opposite of what you were doing before. Do you ever miss that kind of environment?
So I feel like I'm applying the same mindset that I applied there to what I'm doing now. And that's why I feel like I'm still thinking like a monk. And I feel like you guys are too, because all I'm doing is, the noise is different. The challenge is different, but the mindset needed is the same, right? It's like taking that same mindset of how do we not get distracted in the noise? How do you not get carried away? How do you not get lost in what's happening here? So I feel like I'm using that toolkit, and I have to constantly sharpen that toolkit and get better at it. But I kind of love being challenged the same way as what you said. Like, it's a different challenge. It's a new challenge. And now the challenge is far more mental and subtle and almost less gross and physical, but it's still there, and I enjoy that. I think I thrive off of that as well. It's just that the challenge is not as tangible anymore. It's not necessarily breakthroughing a number of days or a number of minutes, but it's like breaking through like your ego, which is really hard. And painful to look at.
It's a tough one.
So it's that kind of, it's that kind of challenge. So no, I feel, oh, sorry, man. I just feel like, I feel like it's a different challenge. Do I miss, I go back and stay with the monks again every year. So I still do that every December and January. Me and my wife go back and we spend 2 to 3 weeks meditating again for long amounts of time and with the monks and everything. So I kind of get to relive it. And I feel like the challenges I have now make me more grateful for those experiences.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
You have more experience with that stuff than all of Los Angeles, actually.
Oh, yeah. And so do you with everything you've done. Okay, this is good. I could talk to you guys for hours. I know you guys have got to leave soon. So I feel like we need to do a part 2 as well.
Yeah,
that would be
This has
great.
been amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Like I have learned so much from you guys. I already respected you guys like up here, and now my respect for you guys has just gone through the roof. Like I already was in love with you guys, and now I'm like more in love with you guys. And it's like you're special, man. Like I love what you guys are doing. Like and I love how genuine, sincere, and deep you guys are about it. Like I think that's what I love about it the most. That your intention is so good, and that's why so many people are in love with you guys. We picked out this fan comment and appreciation. I'm sure you get tons of these, but we picked this out because I wanted to share it with you. So these guys were one of the main reasons I overcame depression and anxiety a few months ago. I suppose my story relates most to what Thomas was saying at the end, that yes theory is not about quitting your job or dropping everything, but just about making time to do things that take you out of your comfort zone. I mean, how does it feel when you hear people breaking through like depression and anxiety? And I'm sure you've had, all sorts of feedback. Like, how does that feel when you hear that?
Relatable, because we struggled with both of those things a lot. And the reason we're so obsessed with the message is because it's been a path for us as well. So I see myself in a message like that completely, And when we first met, we were anxious messes trying to figure out life, and we still struggle with anxiety, and obviously meditation helps, being around people like you helps, and discomfort helps. And that's why a person like that not only benefits from, I guess, the content and watching us, but from the community that they create around themselves. And the only reason we've been able to do what we do and grow as people is because of, our community. So it's every single time it's just like, damn, that's me too.
Yeah.
I'm, we're in this together, baby.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's an amazing byproduct of what it is that we're creating. And we're so grateful that we're making videos that can touch people in that way. Because as Matt said, like anxiety has been something we've struggled with, and Ammar struggled with depression. So to be able to give people something that gets them out of that headspace, or at least makes them realize that it's possible, is the most rewarding part of everything that we do.
And do you feel that your service is also your antidote to that depression and anxiety?
Absolutely.
Like, do you feel like what you're doing is what helps you get through it? Or what are you guys using to, apart from meditation or being around the right people, what else are you guys doing to get through that yourself?
I think other than the classic, exercise, therapy, all that.
Which is all important stuff.
Yeah. Much needed.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if people don't have a great morning routine based around, for us, it is Matt got me into meditation and exercise, and then, weekly therapy, and then just journaling as well. All of these basic things seem quite simple, and you hear them everywhere, but there's a reason why everyone says they're beneficial, right? It's because it actually does make a difference. So for me, like giving myself time in the morning to do it too. So I'm not just rushing it to be like, okay, I'm going to meditate 5 minutes and then exercise 20 minutes, but rather like being intentional with it has made a big difference.
I think honestly challenging who you think you are, like finding ways to challenge these constructs that you've built in your head. Like, I am a depressed person. I am an anxious person. No, you're not, but you're doing all these things that reinforce that story. So how do you shift that story? And honestly, doing extreme challenges for yourself you start to question all these things you've told yourself your whole life. That's why it's so important to do something in like that really you think.
And this is coming really from someone who is anxious.
Yeah.
And who's said, I am anxious all the time.
Yeah, I'm an anxious person. I used to tell myself that I'm an anxious person. And it's like, no, shut up. Shut up.
Yeah.
But then that's the first step of being like, there is a version of me that can experience less anxiety and also accept the fact that anxiety is a part of the scope of emotions that everybody in the world experiences. And if, with intention, create the right habits to limit that, then you can actually end up on the other side feeling much more fulfilled and calm and grateful every single day.
Yeah.
So,
nice.
Yeah.
Amazing, man. You guys are brilliant. I could dive into so much more. We definitely have to do a part 2, but we end every podcast with 2 segments, fill in the blanks and the fast 5. So we're going to start with fill in the blanks. So each of you get a chance to just fill in the sentence. So
Amazing.
content creators are.
I'd say winging it
Winging it. Yeah.
like everybody else.
I guess so. Yeah.
Okay, nice. Good answer. All right. The internet is. Either of you can go.
Messy and beautiful was what I thought at the same
Beautiful
time.
disaster, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Seeking discomfort doesn't mean.
Recklessness.
I would agree with that.
Okay. Yes theory at its core helps people.
Become free.
And connected.
Nice. What impresses me most about humans is their ability to.
Overcome challenges.
Redefine themselves.
Awesome. I always say no to.
First one I thought it was pointless parties.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
Definitely no to pointless parties and no to anyone who doesn't make you feel free.
Nice. Change your life by saying yes to small things like.
Cold showers.
We did a lot of those.
Yeah.
And journaling. That's the new one for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Journaling's huge,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. You can choose love over fear by.
Being kind when it isn't convenient.
Realizing that it's a choice.
Nice. Amazing. That was good, guys. Fill in the blanks. Okay. These are your fast 5. So these are fast 5, rapid fire, quick fire answers.
Okay.
Okay. The last kind thing you've done for a stranger. I'm guessing you guys do loads.
There was a homeless guy sitting on the side of the street, and I wasn't going to stop. I biked past him, and then his cart fell on the side of the road. I was just like, and my instinct was I'm too busy. I got to go do my thing. And then I turned around and I asked him if he needed help, and he was like, yes, please. Like immediately he was like, thank you. He couldn't lift it himself.
Yeah.
So I just helped him get up, and then I saw he was walking to Subway, so I just offered to buy him the dinner, and he was just super grateful, and I came seconds away from just talking my way out of it, but very glad that I did.
Awesome, bro. Matt?
Yeah. Our most recent thing that we did as a group was renovating in a lady's house her backyard, that we met because someone said that she was the kindest person that they'd met. So that felt really good.
Is that video out yet?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay. I need to check that out. Okay. We'll get everyone to watch that. What have you been chasing in your life that you no longer pursue? What's been something that you've been like chasing that you now realize you're not chasing anymore? Matt, your face.
At least something that I'm trying to pursue less is too much weight on approval of others, but trying to always check myself. Am I doing this for myself in a place of growth, or am I doing it because I want somebody else to think that I'm something that I'm not?
Yeah.
I'm trying to pursue less of catastrophizing. It's not the end of the world if certain things don't go right sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
As an anxious man, I can relate.
The third one, the one video you'd love my audience to watch and why. One of your videos that you'd love my audience to go check out after listening to this interview.
I think the 2 that we mentioned, Iron Man and the Wim Hof documentary.
Yeah, those are great.
Yeah, we're very proud of those.
Great. All right, guys. Make sure you go check those out. I say. Question number 4. If you could create a law for everyone in the world to follow, what would it be?
That's an amazing question.
I got it from my good friend Drama. You know Drama?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he asked me a similar question. So we adapted it.
I would say like doing a random act of kindness on a weekly basis, like getting out of your way to help a complete stranger or maybe someone in your family or friend without them needing to ask you for help, just offering it or trying to, get one step ahead and seeing that you can offer a hand.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
To tell someone something you're afraid of.
Interesting. Wow.
Genuinely afraid of.
Yeah. That's a unique one for sure. Nice. All right. 5th and final question. What was your biggest lesson personally from the last 12 months? The biggest lesson you've learned in the last 12 months?
For me, it's perspective. I've been thinking about it a lot especially the past few weeks. Just I can I'm in control of how I see a situation. And I can be extremely upset or, feel defeated from a failure, or I can decide to see it as a learning lesson. Something that I love recently is life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. I'm sure you've heard that quote before.
Good one.
And just having that perspective and always reminding myself of that has been such a life-changing lesson.
I think the lesson for me is, and I think you both, because you've been in longer relationships than I have, especially you, Jay. But the advice somebody recently gave me is when you're especially starting to see someone that you're interested in, that it's never supposed to feel hard, that it should actually feel, whether it's a friend or somebody you're dating, it should feel very easy and very open. And I think I've always had this common misconception that it's supposed to be this difficult romantic struggle or whatever. But I think, now I don't know, I've kind of realized after struggling with many different kinds of relationships that the best ones are actually the easiest, where you feel the most comfortable with the person.
Yeah. I love it, guys. That's Yes Theory, everyone. You guys are amazing. Matt and Thomas, thank you.
Cheers, dude.
Thanks for doing this, man.
Appreciate
you guys
it.
are just, you guys are brilliant. And I hope that today's allowed people to see the depths of your minds and just how much you're both dedicated to this process. Like you guys are really living it, and that's the best part about it. You guys are genuinely testing yourselves. You can see how much growth and learning's happening in those minds and through the lives that you're living. And I'm so excited for you to be friends for decades.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like, we're all so lucky that we're meeting each other now.
Yeah.
And I feel like one day we're going to look back when we're like 70 years old, 8 years old, and we're going to look back at like all the stuff we used to say and all the stuff we used to do. And it's going to be fun to be able to live that life together, it's going to be exciting. I'm so grateful to know you guys right now. And I'm just so excited to see what you do. I'm excited for your podcast. That's about to launch. Tell us a bit about that, and tell us a bit about why people should listen to it and where people can find it, and
absolutely
why you started one. I'm excited.
It's finally an opportunity for us to go deeper. And in the videos, you can't always really understand how an experience became powerful and what we actually learned from it. And so it's an opportunity for us to bring in some of the most I guess it's an opportunity for us to bring in some of the most exciting people that we've met along the way that have truly changed our lives, and dive deep into what we've learned and how you can apply it into your own life. So obviously your podcast is very targeted, is very oriented towards self-improvement. And at the core of our message, that's what we definitely align on that. And so what we want to do is just give people opportunity to really dive deep into the topic of discomfort and into self-improvement, to then just be able to grow and as a community and as individuals.
Amazing. What's the podcast called?
It's called the Yes Theory Podcast.
Easy.
Super
Nice.
simple.
Is there anything you want to say about the podcast?
It's launching. Do we have the exact date?
So it's launching early April.
Okay, so by the time this is out, people will know that it will already be out. So if you're listening to this, it's already out. Go and find it.
It's an opportunity to dive deep into discomfort and hopefully get some incredibly insightful conversations.
Amazing, man. Yeah, go follow these guys across Instagram. Follow them on YouTube. Of course, subscribe if you haven't already. Go check out the podcast. Highly recommend everything they put out.
Thank you, bro.
And just so grateful to have you guys on. Thank you so much, man.
Appreciate it.
Read your book.
Yeah, I'm excited to get it to you guys.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
Congratulations on that.
So much, man. This was awesome.
Of course.
Thanks everyone
Thank
for
you.
listening. Make sure you share on Instagram the biggest takeaways from Matt and Thomas and Ammar and Spirit. Tag us all in on Instagram to let us know what you gained, what you learned, which was the wisdom nuggets that stood out to you. And I can't wait to see them. Make sure to tag all of us so that we can reciprocate and engage with you guys. Thank you so much for listening. Take care.